dad was on his daily morning photography walk and stumbled upon something really unsettling. My dad always leaves the house around the same time. It's always before the sunrise. Not even 20 minutes my dad is out walking, he sees a candle burning. He starts to get closer and approaches it, realizing it could be a pretty serious fire hazard, and he's gonna put the candle out. Then he realizes it's a crime scene. There are decapitated animals surrounding the candle. My dad suspects the animals are a dog, 2 chickens, and a pigeon. He doesn't blow out the candle because it's a crime scene and he immediately calls the police. But something else that was disturbing was that there was no blood soaked into the ground. There was no blood anywhere. They were decapitated somewhere else. My dad didn't understand. Who sacrifices animals and leaves a regular yoga or meditation candle? It said namaste on the candle. What makes this entire situation even more strange is that one day, a few months ago, my dad was walking and taking pictures. He's a photographer. Then suddenly, a girl in her late teens to early 20s tells him that he must follow her to see these mushrooms in a tree. He'd never seen her before, and she reminded him of Wednesday Addams. She was far from the path and started acting too excited about these mushrooms. He realized the situation was weird and left, not before she said she'd see him again. So, the police don't come right away, but when they finally do, they were very lackadaisical. It seems this isn't the first time they've found animals sacrificed in the woods. However, last time it wasn't a dog, it was a goat. My dad took a different walk for 2 days. He was concerned. There was nothing he could do. This just happened. I have no idea what's going on, and I'm absolutely terrified about the animal sacrifices and the girl who seemed to want to hurt my dad. Curtains were invented for a reason. I'm a girl, and this happened when I was 20 in the early 2000s. This occurred in a town about an hour away from Sacramento. My friend Amanda was house sitting for a family that her family was friends with from church. She was going to house sit just outside of town for a week. They had animals like cats, rabbits, a donkey, and a horse. The family also had dogs, but they took the dogs with them. My friend was in charge of feeding the animals and watching the place. They didn't have any neighbors for miles, just fields of alfalfa, cattle, and corn. Towards the end of the week, she asked if I wanted to spend the night and keep her company, and I thought it sounded fun. I had moved out of my aunts and uncles and gotten my own apartment, so I told her I'd pick her up on the way there after I got out of work. We got there around 9 p.m., grabbing dinner on the way. We went into the barn first thing and fed the animals. It was late for the dinner and they made their hunger known with noises. We made sure they had water, then went inside. The house was this big ranch-style house, single story. We watched some TV, ate our leftovers, and talked about people we knew. As it got later, she turned on the house alarm and said she didn't like sleeping in other people's beds, so she had been sleeping on the couch, then offered it to me. She would sleep on one of the recliners. The chairs were comfortable, so I went and laid back in a chair with my blanket. We turned off the TV and were maybe talking for 20 minutes in the dark when the motion sensor light started shining through the window, lighting up the room. Now, I really have no idea why people in the country think it's okay not to have curtains or blinds, because to me, that's insane. We both got quiet and Amanda says, "Maybe it was one of the cats." Then we start hearing gravel crunch, like a person walking across gravel outside. My chair was closest to the window, and I slid carefully down to the floor, clutching the stupid blanket the entire time. The floodlight timed out, and my friend slid to the floor as well. We laid on our stomachs in the dark, not knowing what to do for a minute, when we heard a loud bang, and all of a sudden, the house alarm started blaring and the floodlights turned on again. It was so loud we covered our ears and started to panic. I swear I have never been so close to pissing myself in my life. I began crawling towards the alarm to hit the emergency button to contact the authorities. The main screen says, "Patio 1 of 2, open." Amanda starts to cry a little and hits the call assistance button on the pad, and nothing happens. There's no assistance. I ask her where the phone is, and she says there's one in the kitchen and one in the owner's room down the hall. So, our choices are to go to the kitchen past the windows or down the hall. We go inside the owner's room and it's pitch black. I ask her where's the phone and she says, I don't know. We might need to turn the light on. I really didn't want to turn on a light, but we have no choice. She turns on the light and we start looking around the room. These people didn't have curtains on any window. We see a golf club leaning against the wall by the bed. We figure if we hit someone with it, it's gonna leave a mark. She grabs it and we continue our search for the phone. Looking at the obvious places, we find a cordless phone stand, minus the actual phone. The alarm is still raging. We have a light on, and all I'm thinking at this point is the person who opened the patio door is bound to notice. She asks, should we just use the locate phone buttons? I look at her and respond quietly, yeah, if you want some strange guy coming in here with it and asking us if we were looking for something. I'm getting mad that I'm scared and in this situation. The alarm stops. It gets country quiet. We double check the security panel and it still says patio open. Emergency button still doesn't work. Double checking the front door's lock, we start for the kitchen. I tell her we have to check the patio near the kitchen and I grab a knife that wasn't even close to being sharp. We check the patio door and it's locked. We turn on all the lights, grab the phone, and dial 911. She's on the phone with the dispatcher telling them what's happening, and I hear a whistle coming from outside the kitchen window. The thing people don't think about when it's night. The inside reflects, but on the outside, people have a clear view of you. I hear the whistle again. It sounds like someone trying to get someone else's attention kind of whistle. But I don't see anything outside, and I'm not pressing my face to the window to see if I'm the person they're whistling for. My friend is still talking to the dispatcher, crying and saying she doesn't have the address to the house. She hands me the phone, and the dispatcher sounds annoyed and tells me that she needs an address to send police to. I ask that she trace the call, and she responds, "You're house sitting and you don't even know where you're at." Scared, angry, and overwhelmed, I hand the phone back to Amanda and start looking for something with an address in the kitchen. I'm looking in the junk drawer, the counter, on the fridge, keeping view of the hall that leads to the open patio. A few seconds later, Amanda removes the phone from her ear and stares at me with a blank face. I ask her if they're tracing the call because I can't find anything with an address. Amanda tells me, she said I hope the police find you in time, and hung up the phone. We knew that there were people outside. We knew that the patio door was open. We did not know what to do. We stood in the kitchen silent for what seemed like forever. I picked up the phone and dialed 411. I told Amanda that they would have the number to the police department. As calmly as I could, I explained what was happening to 411. I told them we really needed the phone number for the town's police department. When we heard a huge bang by the patio door, it sounded like someone dropped something metal and heavy. The 411 operator said they were connecting us and would stay on the line with us. A police officer answered the phone and the 411 operator relayed the situation. They were asked to disconnect once we had an established connection. The police asked a few questions and we heard the whistle outside again and floodlights all around the house turn on again. I was too scared to look outside, and we had never turned on the patio light because we had to walk past the patio window to get to the switch. We told the policeman on the phone about the whistle, and he said there should be officers showing up shortly and to stay on the phone. We were just outside the town limits and knew it would take a few minutes. Having an officer on the phone made me feel a little bit better, but it was still terrifying. A few moments later, there were lights heading up the driveway. It was the police. 4 officers approached the house asking us our names. They ordered us to stay in the dining room and began searching the house and property. One by one, they returned. The last one came back in through the patio door by the kitchen. He said he searched the barn and that the horse scared him, but that the horse also looked scared. He asked what other animals were in the barn. They told us they didn't find anyone and that the patio was not locked. After finishing statements, they said they'd stick around and look more, and if we wanted, we could leave. They would lock the door on their way out. So mentally exhausted, we fell asleep and went to work the next morning. She said she really didn't want to go back to the house, but she had to feed the animals their breakfast. Her mom told her to take her sister, and she did. That afternoon, she called me at work. She was really nervous and began telling me that when they went into the house, there were footprints on the carpet. I said it was probably from the cop that checked the barn. She also said that when they went into the barn to feed the animals, someone had tied all the rabbits' legs together in their hutches. They had 10 rabbits for our youth organization. Amanda then continues to say that there was a note with the word lucky scribbled on the back of a pizza coupon. It took a while for them to untie the rabbits, and Amanda asked her mom to find someone else from their church to finish the house sitting. She wasn't going back. She also told the officer what she came back to, but no one was ever caught, and the police never called either of us to update us. The more I thought about it, the more disturbing it became. This story comes from my mother. My mom was born and raised in the high country of East Central Montana. Much of the area she grew up in looks like this. She came from ranching people, and her father, which was my grandfather, was a genuine cowboy. She often worked around the ranch with him, so there's not a lot that shakes her soul, except for what happened when she had to run into town when I was only 8 months old. This happened in the middle of a sunny summer day. The ranch she was raised on was almost 2 hours away from the nearest town. My mom had to run into town to get groceries and baby supplies for me. She was driving on a long and isolated dirt road back to the ranch when she reaches into her purse on the passenger seat to get something. It slips out of her hand and into the passenger footwell. She then has to stop the car so she can safely retrieve what she dropped. She grabs it, and as soon as she sits back up, she looks into the rearview mirror and sees a man about 100 feet or 30 meters behind the car running at her. Needless to say, she puts the car back into gear and gets the hell out of there. As she's looking back at me in the car seat, making sure that I'm okay, she sees the guy give up running after her and run back into the ditch to hide. Of course, when she gets home, she tells her mom and dad about what happened, and they're stunned. Here's where it gets disturbing. My mom didn't see any cars or trucks parked along that dirt road for the entire way to the ranch. She also didn't see anybody walking along the highway or the dirt road, which raises even more questions. How did he get out there? Why was he out there? And even more disturbing, what would he have done to my mom or an 8-month-old me? I've only asked my mom about this story twice. After the second time, she tells me to never ask her about it again, and I completely understand why. I get messed up thinking about it. I can only imagine how she felt having directly experienced it. This occurred way out in the middle of nowhere in the Montana high country. It's wide open and flat grassland with low, rolling hills. The only traces of human activity you'll find out there are the fence posts and maybe a windmill or an old abandoned barn or house. Rural Montana is not a place where you go casually hanging out. Unless you actually live out there, know someone who lives out there, or have some business with someone, you shouldn't be going out there for any reason. On top of how she didn't see anyone walking on the highway or the dirt road and didn't see any vehicles parked alongside the road, any person who made it that far on foot for some reason is not someone anyone should be interacting with. The more I thought about it, the more disturbing it became, said my mother.